If you love liberty, declare your independence by signing the Shire Society Declaration at shiresociety.com.
We will open the hearing on House Bill 1477, and since we're going to give the prime sponsor minutes, I guess we'll allow Representative O'Leary to introduce the bill.
This is relevant to annulment of arrests and convictions for possession of 3/4 of an ounce of marijuana or less. The prime sponsor is Randy Cushing, and that's what it's all. I agree.
Excellent job, Representative.
Thank you very much.
Oh, there is that Chicago fire. That's over.
That's the cow.
You're off the hook, Representative.
Does anybody have any questions?
That's going to be a different bill.
You have any zigzag papers?
The chair recognizes Stephen Power.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Steve Tower. I'm with New Hampshire Legal Assistance. We're a nonprofit law firm that provides free legal services to low-income families and seniors across the state of New Hampshire. I'm here to testify in favor of this bill today. As you're aware, New Hampshire decriminalized possession of 3/4 of an ounce of marijuana, but countless New Hampshire residents convicted prior to the law change still have criminal records related to those convictions. At New Hampshire Legal Assistance, we recognize that one of the best ways for an individual who is living in poverty to escape that poverty and become more financially independent and secure is to find stable, secure employment. Well, these past convictions for small amounts of marijuana can come back to haunt somebody in a job application or in a background check. They can also come up in background checks for housing, and convictions for possession of marijuana can disqualify students for federal financial aid. All of these barriers affect an individual's ability to better their lives and become more independent. In a lot of cases with our clients, it would interfere with their ability to no longer rely on public benefits in order to make ends meet. I imagine many people in the state, I know certainly I would love to see more individuals in New Hampshire not have to turn to public benefits in order to make ends meet. And giving more residents of New Hampshire the opportunity to have access to and the ability to find those jobs that would allow them to be independent and self-sustaining is something that New Hampshire Legal Assistance supports. I would hope that you support this bill, and I'm here if anyone has any questions.
And also over there. Folks convicted under the old, before we change the sentence, the law, are they denied entry into public subsidized housing?
I believe any conviction for a drug crime prohibits somebody from access to subsidized housing. I think that's federal policy. So the annulment of the conviction theoretically would allow somebody to access subsidized housing again. I can say from my experience at NHLA, many low-income people, subsidized housing is oftentimes the only thing keeping them from being homeless. A lot of people who do not have the income necessary to make the market rate rents have no other options, and losing access to subsidized housing can be a huge loss for them.
Or if we were to pass that, would it speed up the time for them to have it expunged?
I believe under the current law for annulment, annulment of a misdemeanor requires either 2 or 3 years to have passed since the sentence has been completed. And this would speed that up. So individuals who had received a conviction sometime last year or 18 months ago would now be able to access the annulment process.
Okay, Representative.
Thank you. Can you speak a little bit more around the annulment? If you annul it, are they still at risk of someone finding it on the internet? If they're looking at public records, has it disappeared? Just the mechanism of it that I'm concerned about. You can annul this, but could they still track something down on the internet that would impact them?
I think people can still have things tracked down on the internet. The internet tends to be forever. So a police blotter or a news story of an arrest or a conviction, if that's on the internet, an annulment doesn't force anyone to take that down. That's still out there, unfortunately.
Follow up?
Paul?
Thank you. Would there be a mechanism for the people who received the annulments to have something or be able to request something to bring in to say this was annulled, even though there is still something out on the internet that suggests it's not annulled? Does that make sense?
I'm not certain. What context are you asking?
Okay, so I have, I have a conviction, it's been annulled. I go in to get some help from someone and it's turned down because they found me on the internet. Can I go to the police and say, can you give me a certificate to say this was annulled? Can I have something that proves that there was an annulment when there is something on the internet that's old but suggests that I did have a conviction?
I believe when an individual receives an annulment of conviction, there is documentation that they receive recognizing that, and they would be able to present that.
Thanks.
I have a question. I noticed that in the annulments that even if things are annulled, when the court, they have records going back. I saw one case back in early 1980s. They still have them, so even though they're annulled, they're still part of the record. How does that happen?
We generally do keep detailed records, but here in New Hampshire, but the existence of the record does not necessarily mean that there is still an existing conviction, and the consequences of that conviction may no longer affect the individual.
I know I was sitting in the courtroom once, they brought something brought up 35 years ago. I totally forgot about it, and I thought it was gone a long time ago, but here the court still have records of it, and I know paid all the fees to know it, and they're still existent. I mean, how effective is the annulment process, I guess would be my question, maybe not for you, but... Representative Gargis.
Thank you. I was just wondering, there's this procedure, and how complicated or difficult would it be to petition? What's involved in that, and would that affect the number of people who would take advantage of that?
Well, I have to be entirely honest. I don't have any personal experience with the annulment process. It's not something that New Hampshire Legal Assistance does directly. I have a copy of the current statutory language for the annulment process in RSA 651:5. I could circulate a copy of that to the committee. It does appear that there's a process of some paperwork that needs to be filed. There's, at the end of the process, a $100 fee that has to be paid. I believe there's another bill being considered in this session which would address the annulment process and act to sort of streamline it and make it a bit more accessible for individuals.
Further questions?
I'll put in a card for Howard.
Thank you. Chair Carl Huska.
I'll save you.
Howard, are you going to speak on this?
No.
I was going to fill out a card for you, Howard. I won't say.
I'm just a pretty face.
Good afternoon. I appreciate you giving me the chance to talk again today. I'm here in support of HB 1477 for many of the reasons actually that have been mentioned already. We strongly supported the decriminalization effort last year, and we would argue that decrim isn't actually complete until we pass this bill. Decriminalize this for future crimes, but to really implement it, we need to go back and help people annul their records for those who were convicted under a crime that no longer exists. So we as a state, as our community, decided that possession of small amounts of marijuana shouldn't be a crime, which means we shouldn't continue to punish people who were previously convicted for this. And as was previously noted, a criminal record can be devastating for a Granite Stater. It can prevent you from getting a job, from housing. It can keep you from getting student loans. And given the price of education, if you can't access student loans that often means you're not going to access college at all, which limits economic mobility, it limits your productivity, it hurts our state. And I would just note one thing that I wanted to respond to one of the representatives' questions in terms of whether this exists on the internet or not. What's one note in New Hampshire, so as an employer, you're allowed to ask job applicants about criminal records. You are not allowed to ask job applicants about annulled crimes. So there is that protection. So people would be able to apply for jobs and would not have to talk about this issue if it was annulled, which would greatly help Granite Staters find jobs and productive jobs. Happy to answer questions.
Wow, you just hit me over with a ton of bricks with your last statement. What can we do to have that on any kind of an employment application that sit there for the applicant filling out? The employer is not allowed to ask about anything that was annulled.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a lawyer being present when you're being arraigned. So the people filling out a job application are shaky too. And, I better put it down. They find out and I lied, and I don't get the job. They've already boxed themselves in. What can we do as legislators?
Well,
but they would include that in an application.
Yeah. This is outside the realm of this law, but I would argue that means we need to ban the box in New Hampshire. That we should make it so that criminal records just aren't a question for employees or employers. But given that we allow the box still on job applications. Part of that is education. People need to understand that if they do get their record annulled, they don't have to check the box that says, do you have a criminal record? The annulment actually means you no longer do. And hopefully when they petition for annulment, that's part of the process. You learn that. For a lot of people, that's why they petition for annulment. They know that, and therefore they don't want to have to check the box moving forward.
Any questions?
Yes, I just wondered, say an employer asks for a criminal background check. Mm-hmm. Is it going to read the charge and then say annulment after it, or is it just not going to see anything at all about that topic?
That's a good question. My understanding is it takes it off your record.
Just off the record altogether.
But I don't want to say that 100% definitively.
Question? Did you have a question?
No, I didn't.
Was that Larry?
It's not so much.
Behind the sign over there.
Not so much of a question, but you're asking what could we do about this. Places across the country have organizations going out now that's ban the box. Ban the box.
Sally, block the box?
We need to ban the box.
Don't block the box.
Ban the box. So this is not in any application whatsoever. And if the employee really wants to know, they base the job and the description and so forth and the client one-on-one. As it goes towards the second or third or fourth interview, then is when they get into the criminal record and so forth. But it's not usually done initially.
We would love to work with you to introduce a bill on that next session.
I worked on that in my other job.
Further questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Chair calls Ian Freeman.
I'm Ian Freeman, one of the co-chairs of the New Hampshire Liberty Party. I support this bill, however, it doesn't go quite far enough. We did talk earlier about how the war on drugs has damaged people's lives, and one of the damages that is caused is by fines, for instance, that people are issued. So even if they aren't, sent to jail, they're still fined. And a lot of the people who these drug war arrests affect tend to be the poorer of the population. Even though rich people use drugs too, they're less likely to be targeted and they can afford attorneys. So when you're a poor person and you get convicted of a drug conviction, most of the time, and I've sat in plenty of district court hearings where I've seen plenty of people take plea deals, and almost all of them do not have enough money to pay right then and there, which means that they then have to get on a payment plan. And of course the court charges an extra 20% on top of the assessed fine. So you get the fine for the guilty conviction. There's also a 24% penalty assessment attached onto that, for everybody, and then for anybody who can't afford to pay all of that at once, it's an extra 20% financing fee. So you've got these poor people who are already struggling to make ends meet, who now have to make monthly payments to the court that they already couldn't make. Now we've got the state of New Hampshire admitting, well, we were wrong. We shouldn't have been arresting you for possession of this plant. We're sorry. Now we're going to offer you this annulment process, which again, I support the bill, but only because it's a step in the right direction. To me, it's a slap in the face to these people who are being told, yeah, we made a mistake. We, the state of New Hampshire, screwed up. You can come now and give us $100 and then another $100, and then we might just go ahead and wipe this off your record. So just another insult to injury to have to pay out another $200 to the very same people who hurt you in the first place. If I were involved in this process, I would put an amendment in to strike any kind of fees for the people who are putting in the annulments, because again, it's going to be very poor people who are going to want to have their record annulled.
I remind you of the testimony that with dollar amounts and things of that fiscalness in this, we'll probably go to a second committee. And that particular issue specifically is what will be discussed in ways and means system.
Okay, well, for what it's worth, if somebody wanted to put in an amendment to strike the dollar amounts, they certainly could, and I think that would encourage more people, especially those who can't afford it, to come out. And again, there is the provision for indigency, but I don't know if y'all have ever seen what that's like in court. It's a very insulting 4-page long financial affidavit where you have to tell the court about all your bank accounts and whatever cars and all the financial information you have. So again, if the state is really saying, hey, we were wrong, we're sorry, we're willing to give you an annulment, let's do it for no fee. And there's really no reason why anybody needs to do like Section 2 of the Act, which mentions the first $100 fee, that the department has to go through all this hassle of looking up information. Why bother? There's no reason to make people jump through those hoops, especially in the department. If somebody applies for the annulment, they should just get it. Thank you.
Now, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Freeman, I just wanted to figure out the reasoning that you say that the courts are charging them so many fees. However, the person doesn't think about it when he's out there buying the drugs, so he must have money somewhere if he's buying the drug. So he causes his own problem. He should be responsible for himself. Wouldn't you believe that?
Well, I certainly believe that people should be responsible for themselves. However, just because somebody has money to purchase drugs doesn't mean that it's okay to go ahead and find that person and punish them even more than whatever the punishment would naturally be of having a drug habit, because Representative Fields, having a drug addiction is punishment in its own volition.
Other questions? Seeing none, thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on 1477? All right, we'll close the public hearing on House Bill 1477.
We'd like to invite you to visit freekeen.com. Freekeen.com features audio, video, and blogs chronicling the transition to a voluntary society. Freekeen.com also has comments and discussion forums so you can be heard. Freekeen.com.
I should be in Keene, New Hampshire with the Free Staters.